Hello, everyone. Good morning and good day. I am your host, Nicholas Hofter von Heide, with the International Euphonium Summit Living History Series. And today we have our guest from the DC area, Ryan McGeorge, with the President's Own. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Nicholas. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Cheers.
Cheers.
So, if for most that know, there is a podcast segment attached and associated to this where we dive into kind of coffee talk as well as a really cool story about a 1930s baritone and a really interesting thrift find. So go check that out on your favorite podcast channel. Once it's loaded, the link will be in the YouTube info area. And yeah, so thank you for joining us, Ryan.
Yeah, of course.
So take us back into the day, and where did you start with music?
Well, the very first thing I ever did musically was piano lessons. I think, before that, I think as a young kid, my parents noticed that I like to sing, and I think that they picked up that I had a good ear and I could match pitch, carry a tune, kind of thing. Um, and they asked me if I wanted to take piano lessons. We had a piano in the house that I kind of messed around on, and I found it interesting, but I didn't know what I was doing. So around 8 years old, I started piano lessons, and there's a lovely elderly woman. Her name was Evelyn Estabrook. um, God rest her soul. uh, she was, older retired lady, very, like, very sweet, very good. And she just that's the first time when I learned about scales and things and harmony. Um, you know, major and minor, that kind of stuff. But I just hated the practicing piano at home when I was a kid. When I was 8 years old, I just hated it. um and I don't really know why. I think I was just, well, I was a kid, and had a lot of neighborhood kids that like to play outside, and my parents were like, well, you have to practice piano. And so, like, I could hear the kids playing outside, but I was had to practice piano, and I just really like wanted to be outside being a kid, and I just kind of hated it. So I quit after like 6 months. um you know um and I didn't really do music for a while, until I got to middle school. And in middle school, I remember, like, the chance to pick your electives, and I was like, I saw band on there, beginning band, and I thought, oh, no way, I'm not doing that. I tried learning an instrument, I hated it. So I just signed up for the general elective roll the dice thing. You could either get like wood shop, or I don't remember what the other ones were. I really wanted wood shop, and I didn't get it. I got put in a class called general music, which was, and I was really upset about it. And and I remember complaining about it, like I really wanted to get wood shop or whatever. And I think like maybe I would have gotten wood shop eventually on the rotation, like maybe, in a later trimester kind of thing. But the first one I had to do was general music, and it was like learning about what the instruments were, learning like, this is the brass family and this is the whatever family, and these are this guitars or this, and like I remember there was some like learning about the history of Broadway shows was part of it, or like learning about like Mozart and Bach, and just very, this was sixth grade, and then so there was the day came where the band, we had some beginning band students bring their it was saxophones. There it was an alto and a tenor. They brought them into the class and the teacher wanted to demonstrate these kids playing their saxophones. like, oh, this is a saxophone and this is how it sounds, and play this note and play this note, whatever, and play like a melody you've learned, blah blah blah. And I was like, I saw that and I was like, that is so cool. I want to join the band. And literally the next day I went to the counselor and I said, I want to be in the band. Because I was just, I don't know, like it was I think in retrospect I was in a class learning about music, and then these kids come in who are in the class that's actually doing the music, and I've learned that about myself. I'm more of a doer than you know than I don't know, I'm not trying to downplay one or the other, but when it's something I really like or am interested in, I want to do it, um instead of just learn about it. So yeah, that and so they put me in band like the next week, and I talked to my parents. I got like a rental saxophone was my first instrument, and I still have it. I have a Yamaha alto sax, um and so yeah, that was kind of like I was in band ever since that.
So what was it like, when you went home that day when the alto sax and the tenor sax played in your general music class?
Yep.
When you went home that evening, did a conversation happen with your parents that
Hmm.
you okay, what was that like? What did they say?
Yeah, no, I mean they based, well, at first I think they said, or it was my mom, and she said, well, are you sure, because we tried this with piano and you didn't like it. And like, no, 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 this is different, because I don't know, I think it was just because, like, instead of being a piano where you're like locked in, you're stuck in a room, like, you have a horn, you can like walk around with it, you can take it to school and you can play with other kids playing horns, and it seemed like a lot more fun than sitting in a room playing a piano by myself. That's a totally unrealistic
But that's a
way
fair assessment.
of like what real piano playing actually is, but in my kid brain, that's what I was thinking.
Precisely.
Yeah,
So
so and I don't know, I think I made it clear that I was bored in the general music class, and playing a horn seemed like way more fun, and an elective class is supposed to be fun. um so they yeah no they were supportive of it, and I said I wanted to play the sax, and yeah, it was cool. Like, I think I convinced them enough that I was into it enough to, you know so yeah.
so how did it go for the rest of that year for sixth grade, and how long
Mhm.
did you stay on the saxophone for?
uh yeah, so I played sax. It went great, I got a few private lessons. I really liked it. And then in the next year in seventh grade in the advanced band, I somehow made first chair on saxophone. But the thing about it is that um, I started, like, there were so many kids playing saxophone in my middle school band, like probably, I don't know, between 10 and 15, you
Wow.
know? Yeah, it was a very saxophone heavy band. I don't know why, but there were a lot of, and we had like no low brass. We had like nobody, we had one tuba, two kids playing trombone, and then that one kid playing a baritone, and then we had some trumpets and stuff, maybe one French horn, and a ton of saxophones. And I don't know, I felt kind of just like lost in the mix of playing, and I saw this kid playing a baritone horn in the back corner. I couldn't hear it at all, and it just, I don't know why, I was just kind of drawn. I just thought it was like the most interesting thing, and it was a really dinged up horn. It was a really like a beater baritone. We actually called it Crater because it was like, the horn was named Crater because it just had so many dents. And so uh I was like, what is that? And somebody said, oh, I think it's a baritone tuba. I'm like, oh, okay. And so I don't know why, but I asked the band director at one time. I think I just wanted to play something that seemed a little more unique, a little more interesting. And she said, "Yeah." And there was another one in the that hadn't been checked out, and so I'm like, "Well, can I check it out and play it?" And so I just decided to take it home and mess around. And when I first started playing it, um, you know, was something with the saxophone. I'm kind of amazed I was able to get as advanced as not that I was advanced, I was, but progress as well as I did because I did not tongue anything as a saxophone player. Like I hated the way that like tonguing on a reed felt, like that sharp edge with your tongue. It was like the worst feeling in the world for me. I hated it.
Would
So
you
instead,
equate that to razor blades?
yeah, it felt awful, and I just hated it so much. So I just learned how to play with throat articulating everything.
Wow.
No one ever knew. I mean, it was in middle school, Eventually it would have caught up with me, I'm sure, but in seventh grade, you can get away with it. Uh so when I played a brass instrument and I switched, and just like all of a sudden the instrument being on the outside of my mouth instead of being in my mouth just felt so much better to me. And like all of a sudden tonguing wasn't a problem because like the tongue, there's no reed there. I'm like just tonguing it in the mouthpiece or the roof of your mouth or whatever, and it just like everything just felt so much better. I was like, oh my god, and there was a learning curve, of course. Now I was behind because I was learning a new instrument, but the horn felt so much better to play, and I just liked playing it so much more. It came pretty quickly, and I enjoyed practicing it. And I don't know. It was just one of those things. It was destiny, I guess.
So what did your mom say when you brought the baritone home for the first time?
Yeah, well, it was yeah, it was actually I think they I don't think they really cared. They were like, okay, and it was a school horn. I mean, I don't think it made a difference to them. And I think they probably saw that I enjoyed it a lot more and I practiced it a lot more. And, eventually, like I did both. Like I told the band director, because I was the first chair saxophone player. I and I told I kind of was like, well, I really like playing this baritone, and maybe I can, switch and play both. So for a while I was like switching back and forth in the band class, which is like, when I think about back now, it's kind of crazy. But eventually, the Euphonium obviously won.
Just a
I
little
think,
bit.
and then what it was what was like the turning point was, um I ended up making in eighth grade I ended up making the honor band on euphonium on baritone. And I think that was where I find like I kind of, it took me a while to totally give up the sax. I didn't totally give up the sax till I got to high school, but that was kind of the catalyst. And then once I got to high school, and then I did DCI and stuff like that, I was like, oh, the saxophone's gone, even though I do still have it, and I do like have a sweet spot for the sax. And I think I did actually try to play it like a year ago or so, and I could still yeah, I could still get some sounds out of it. I still remember the fingerings and stuff, and
So
uh,
the question is, uh,
uh,
kind of recapping that experience, do you still hate tonguing on the reed?
mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, yeah.
That's
I don't
not,
know how they do it. I don't know.
so I have a question. Did your band director, was their main instrument saxophone?
um, I I I don't think so. I actually think she was a brass player, but she was one of those band directors that I mean, she was a band director. Like, she was one of those band directors that just kind of picked up any instrument and played it. And I think I remember, like, you ask, like, what instrument do you play? Well, I play everything. You know, that's the band director answer. So I don't really know what her primary instrument was, but
Because with the saxophone, uh, staunch saxophone section, and she was carting around saxophone players going around the school and getting students like yourself interested in band.
Yeah. Yeah. I do I do have a really funny story actually about
Absolutely.
eighth grade. One of my most embarrassing moments. But so I had, my best friend at the time, he was a trombone player, and we were in middle school band, we were in like beginning band, and then in eighth grade he transferred to another school that was like a way better band program, and he was a trombone player, and he was really really good, like way better than I was. And it was kind of cool. We both ended up playing brass and stuff, and we're actually like still, we're still friends now. We went to high school together and everything, and still one of my best friends. But
Awesome.
he was in I grew up in San Diego, and we had there was a youth orchestra called the San Diego Youth Symphony that was like very very elite, to get into that group. Like only like the best of the best in the area kids playing in this orchestra. And the same organization had they had a wind ensemble, which was not as prestigious as the orchestra, but a lot of the same kids were doing it. And so he played in this youth wind ensemble in San Diego, and he said, "Oh, you should come out, and you should do it. I'll talk to the band director, see if you can come out for a practice or a rehearsal." I was like, "Oh, really? Oh, I don't know," and whatever. So he talked me into it, and I went, and it was like mostly high school kids, and I was in eighth grade, and I was in eighth grade, and it was mostly high school kids. They were like really advanced. It was I thought it was the best group. I was really intimidated. It was like, oh my God, these group kids are really, really good, And and got this beat up horn, and I'm in eighth grade, and I don't know anything, and I'm just sitting there like trying not to screw up and embarrass myself, really, like, and just listening to everyone around me and how good they are. Um, so we're playing the second suite. Um, First time I'd ever like heard that piece or like
Oh
learned about
no! And you're the only baritone player?
it.
Oh, I see where this
Yes.
story's going. Oh no!
Okay. So it's actually not going where you think it's going,
Oh, okay. Huh?
because I was not good enough to be able to pull off that solo then. Uh, they had already been playing it, they had already had some rehearsals, and I just come in, and actually the principal trombone player was playing the euphonium solo.
Sure.
That's why, because they didn't have another baritone player, and the fact that they didn't have a euphonium player in that band was probably the only reason why I was even like they were even open to having me come, because I was not on the level to play in this group at all. um so um anyway, so this kid, he was like an all-state trombone player, senior in high school, like really really good, and he played the euphonium solo. And at the time I'd never even heard of the piece before. I had no idea like that was like one of the quintessential euphonium solos of all time. I had no clue, um so, and they sit me right next to him, so like the trombone
Oh, that's
section.
cool.
Yeah, so I'm sitting just in the back low brass. I'm sitting, right next to this kid. I mean, I call him a kid now, but at the time he was like, oh my God, this like adult, amazing trombone player. So I'm just sitting there in awe of how good this guy sounds. His name was Francisco. uh Really really very nice guy, and actually he was giving me tips, and he was trying to help me along, and he was like, oh yeah, we're playing this here, or do this, or do this here, and he was really trying to help me, and very very generous, maybe even a little too much, because I was playing along, and he's telling me to do stuff. Oh, you're a little, pull this out, whatever. And he said, he leans over to me and he says, your first valve slide is sharp. You need to pull it out. You know, he's telling an eighth grader this. I had never even tried to move my first valve slide before. That never even occurred to me. So I'm like, okay. And so
Oh
I
no!
I try to pull it out, and of course it's like it's frozen, it's not gonna move. And he looks at me like, yeah, you just gotta, you just gotta wiggle it a little
You're
bit. I'm like, okay, okay. And back up. I remember this now. This is coming back to me. So before rehearsal, he had showed up with a brand new trombone, and this is the first rehearsal he was playing it. And it was a Bach 42 rose brass bell, beautiful horn,
Mhm.
and like he was playing like before rehearsal, everyone was like crowded around him, like, oh, look at that, look at him, this new horn. It was like this pristine, and he was like really stoked to be playing it. And so he's got the horn, and now like he's trying to help me or whatever, and so I'm like pulling on it, I'm pulling on it, I'm pulling on it. And then all of a sudden
Shink.
it gives way. And I have the horn in this hand and the slide in this hand. And then my horn goes like, and it crashes right into his trombone. And like this loud boom, everybody in the band turns around, the conductor stops and looks over, and I'm just like horrified. Like still to this day, probably my most embarrassing moment. And I felt so horrible, and it put this giant dent like right on the bell, right, like right where the Bach was. Yeah. So and then and my friend Mike, he's sitting there, and he at the break, I was just like, I'm so sorry. And he was actually took it pretty well. He was pretty gracious about it. But my friend Mike was like, "You're gonna offer to pay for it?" I'm like, "Well, I guess I don't have any." I was like, I'll yeah, okay, well, let me know, I'll pay for it, whatever." And
What happened when you went when you got picked
well,
up?
yeah, no, I mean, I mean, I told my parents what happened, and it was the whole thing. And
Oh,
he took it to it was, luckily it didn't damage the slide. It was just like put this giant dent in the bell. um And so he went and got it repaired, and next rehearsal he brought it in, and it was like rolled out, but you could still totally see the crease and
the
everything. And I
scar.
I paid him like $60. And I felt so bad about it for a long time. And my friend Mike still makes fun of me for that. Every once in a while he'll still bring that up.
Well, now that you've
And
got this out there, um,
yeah,
wow, what
but
a story.
yeah, and of course, like I felt really bad. But on the other hand, it's like, you know, why are you telling an eighth grader he needs to pull out his first valve slide? Like, right. And obviously I'm struggling with it. Like, he should have been like, okay, don't worry about it now. We'll look at it at the break.
I'm sure that's part of his etiquette from now, from that
Yeah.
point forward. And,
Yeah.
oh man,
And it's like a first valve slide, like, would have made that much difference in an eighth grader's playing.
on a
Like, I don't know.
baritone,
I mean, I've forgiven myself a little bit over the years, thinking like, what was he thinking telling me to do that?
he
Uh,
wasn't.
yeah, but it was my, I mean, I just didn't. But
You were brand
so
new. You just started baritone. You just started on baritone.
I know. Yeah,
There's so many excuses, right? That you can put
yeah,
in there, and you know,
yeah. But I mean, I also learned a big lesson that day about, and I don't
you
know,
did.
yeah,
You did. How many?
about always keep your slides greased.
Well,
So
awesome.
anyway, I went into a lot. That was way longer than it probably needed to be. But
Oh, that's okay.
being in that band, it actually, like, after that, they allowed me to stay for some reason. Uh, and I don't know how, probably because I was the only euphonium player, and like I continued to play in that band for a few years, and it was really huge. Like I got better and better, and just being in a group like that, being the worst person in the group, I really grew. Trying to keep up with people that were so much better um
Absolutely.
than I was. And so it was an amazing opportunity to be with that group after I got through that. And we Francisco and I remained on good terms and everything, even after that, for a while. And
That's going to be an awesome
Yeah.
bridge into the next in
Cool.
series with you, Ryan.
Mm.
And that's actually where we're going to leave off on this recording
Okay.
for next time, because uh, that's just a really awesome and natural kind of element of your story, to where we can bridge right into the high school years and continue that story, that kind of progression in your story, kind of the roles with Mike, and how that continues into your development in the high school and beyond. So I appreciate you coming on to this recording and being a part of this our cohort, and willing to share these amazing stories. That's one of the richest stories I've heard
All
so far.
right.
So thank you so much for joining us, and to those that are watching, check out information on Brian McGeorge, and especially check out his newest single, Victrola, which is available on Spotify and YouTube and all the platforms, I believe. And I'll
Yep.
put those
Yep.
links on internationaleuphoniumsummit.com/Ryan-McGeorge. You can find the link in the info section of this video at the time of this recording in 2023, September 28th. Thank you, everybody. And until next time, thank you, Ryan.
All right. Thank you, Nicholas.